Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am authorized to assure you that so far there is no reasonable cause for alarm. The rumors of invading armies and mass destruction are based on hysteria and are absolutely false. I repeat, these rumors are absolutely false.
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of K.A. Applegate's 1996 book series, Animorphs. My name is Coleman.
And my name is Mitchell. And tonight we are happy to present a book that Coleman has apparently read a bunch of times before, but I had never read, and I have always been very excited to read. And lo and behold, I think I was rewarded for this.
It sounded for a second there like you were about to introduce Masterpiece Theater. PBS, sponsored by people like you.
That's basically what this one was, because I'd heard of a tales of alien brain surgery happening, but I just didn't think it would be quite the payoff that we got. I think I spun those tales for you. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
leading up to this one, I built up that scene a little bit.
Regardless, there could have been a lot of cop-outs in this book, and I feel like there weren't. But we'll get to all that fun stuff. We are talking...
I think there's... Since you brought it up, I think there's one cop-out, and I'll mention it when we get there.
Sure. But this is, of course, book number 29, The Sickness. Ooh, wah!
You're going to keep doing that until you get it perfect, right? Every episode? You're going to reference it somehow, just so you can do that?
That's just how I'm going to clear my throat from now on.
That's great. Well, I mean, I was, like you said, I've read this one before. This is one of the, besides the beginning books and a few of the megamorphs and the end of the series, this is one of the random ghost-written books that I had, and I'd read over and over and over again. So I knew exactly what I was getting into with this one. I didn't even have to read it again for this podcast. I did anyway. Because I remembered it so well, but I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it.
Thanks for taking part in your podcast host duties.
I could have skipped them this time, but I still didn't. I actually read it in one sitting. Did you?
Something like that. Yeah, I believe it was like 1 4-hour sitting.
Well, I'm definitely ready to get into it. So let's waste no time, and I want you to start us out hitting up this cover.
Oh, yeah, lovely cover here. Just the old pasty, crappy-looking brown clouds in the background, which I'm sure is representative of, like, the Yerk pool and just being down there and all that drab.
I actually think it's one of the better ones. Something about the color scheme, it looks more like a modern book to me than some of the other ones. I mean, with the rainbow one of last week, that was a little rough. For some reason, I thought this one, her outfit and everything, it looked like they were trying something different. I think it paid off. I actually really like the cover.
Not bad in terms of like model pose and stuff, and plus it gives us our first like official artwork of the Yerks. Which I just want to call out, like, what the hell is going on here? Because these look, greenish, yellowish, and they're always described as gray slugs.
Mm-hmm. And in my mind, what I literally pictured, because of how they wrap around your brain and stuff, I literally pictured like the Pokemon Ditto, just gray. Like a non-shape, rounded edges, and no, like, eyes or anything, just a gray blob.
Well, now here's the thing, though. I actually really, really dig this official artwork for the Yerk. I think it looks as grotesque as it really is. The only thing I think that takes it a little too far is the really dumb, like, it almost looks like a pig nose. Like, if you look on the cover of your book, Cassie keeps her nose basically all the way down to the bottom page, and then it just looks like it's got this weird human-y pig nose on it. And that part's kind of strange. So I figured the Yerk is, the length of your pointer finger, maybe, and it looks just like that, and it's gray-ish and able to flatten its body down completely, like a tapeworm or something.
According to this cover, They're the size of small alligators.
Okay, so the size is not clearly representative of to scale here.
No. But I always thought there was something scarier with what I pictured, just not having any features on it. Not even slug looking. I know it's always described as like a slug, but I still always pictured just a little blob, almost like you couldn't tell where the front or back was, and it just slithered around and moved and flopped, and I always thought that was pretty scary. But it's not my book series, so here you go, artwork.
Well, I don't think they did too bad a job. How about the caption on the front though? Cassie is about to make a change for the better. As far
what does that mean?
As far as those these front cover ones go, this one could be passed off as kind of a generic one, but it does make a little bit of sense because this book does give us, I think, some good Cassie growth.
I thought it was just basically like the marketing team had given up and joined the Yerk propaganda force, and they're like, she's changing into a Yerk. Looks good on her.
It's possible. Who knows?
The inside cover artwork is at least the most relevant I think they've done yet.
It is cool. Although it is kind of ridiculous to me, the idea that a Yerk can be isolated and captured in one of these cages when they can completely flatten and compress and basically liquefy their bodies.
Well, in the book, it's it says that the cage is too small for it to get out. Like it's tiny little.
Yeah, I know.
Wires.
It's very quickly glossed over. They didn't want to talk about it, but I'm just saying. I think that's a little.
Yeah, if you think about what they have to get through to get past just the bones in our ears, they can get incredibly thin. So, although it does say, I was interested when Cassie turned into a Yerk. One of the best parts is her talking about going into the Yerk Canal, and it says they do some destruction when they go in. They rip and tear skin to get past a lot of stuff.
Right? So. Yeah. I love the descriptions. Anytime we get more like Yerk lore and biology, really interesting stuff. The author wishes to thank Melinda Metz for her help in preparing this manuscript. So
who was the writer of the last book?
It was not Melinda Metz, I can tell you that.
Okay. I have to keep track of that now. But I mean, really, for all the woe and warnings we got about the ghostwritten books, I mean, we're 2 for 2 on this one at least.
No,
two in a row that
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I was like, right off the bat, I was like, okay, how are they going to hook me? How are they going to top the beginning of the last book, which had me hooked? In the first 2 chapters, first 10 pages, I was engrossed in Axe and everything that he was doing, and by golly, they figured out a way by setting this first scene here at this high school dance where we get it from Cassie's perspective, and there's been some romantic tensions building between her and Jake over the series, of course, and especially over the last couple of books. And now we get a little bit of a payoff here, and these kind of scenes are just awesome. They're tons of fun, where we get the characters getting to act natural for a change and like enjoy themselves.
It's great. Marco gets a great line where he where after Jake says, "Hey, let's do something normal," Marco says, "Okay, now that you've said that, every time we try to do something normal, it gets nasty and weird."
Exactly. And like I was about to say is they scenes where they get to enjoy themselves are great, but they don't last very long because, of course, something's always got to go wrong. Conveniently, it happens, within eye shot of one of the team members. And in this case, because they have decided to bring Axe to their school functions and try to get him in on this date. And he's got a lot of great lines, by the way, when he's being hit on by this girl who earlier Cassie and Rachel make a scene out of. Just a lot of good stuff, honestly.
Just him screaming about her trying to take his body just makes the book right there.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Come to find out, though, I mean, Axe is delirious. Whether or not that weird dialogue had anything to do with him becoming delirious and sick, probably not. But
No, it sounds like this is basic. I mean, he basically has appendicitis of the brain, whatever the Andalite equivalent is. It's a center of the brain that just, I guess it keeps them pretty healthy, but it can build up. It's like a confined immune system that stores dangerous, pathological diseases, and if it gets too big, or if I guess something goes wrong, just like your appendicitis, it could be, not as useful anymore, and it can go wrong, and you gotta get it taken out, which is probably super easy. Just the fact that Cassie was able to do it, it must be easy on the Andalite world and pretty mundane. But for a bunch of teenagers, and specifically one teenager, it gets rough.
Oh, hey, you know what? Before we get into this huge explanation about what the sickness is and everything that's happening here in the beginning, we didn't read the beginning or the back of the book, my friend.
Oh, it's your turn.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was excited. I was excited to start talking about this book, and we just jumped right into it without even... Okay, so here it is.
Got a care in the world.
For those of you who are interested still, we're talking about the sickness, Animorphs number 29, and here's what the back of the book has to say.
Please don't leave us.
Something is very wrong with Axe. He's sick, and the Animorphs don't know what to do about it. They can't take him to a hospital. They don't know how to contact the Andalite homeworld. And Axe is dying. They never even considered contacting the Andalite homeworld, I don't think. Anyway, Cassie and the other Animorphs come up with a plan, but it involves finding a new way into the Yeerk pool. There's just one problem. Jake, Rachel, Tobias, and Marco come down with Axe's sickness. And now, for the first time, Cassie is on her own.
It's not the first time. A character in this book who's important is from the book where Cassie was on her own for the first time. Not to mention the countless other battles where Cassie's been on her own for the first time.
Exactly. And right now, Cassie's on her own at the school dance for the first time. Until she meets Jake. Which is good. We get to see a little bit of romantic payoff between the two.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice anytime they acknowledge their feelings. It eventually becomes too much of a Ross and Rachel thing where it's like, oh, come on. They're teenagers. They would be trying stuff and trying to get together a little bit, I don't know. They've got a weird relationship. But, I mean, I guess with the stresses of war and all that, but you think that would just push things along faster, don't you think? Like, pushed into adult situations, they wouldn't care about people knowing they were together. It seems weird.
Maybe. I don't know. They don't have anything to hide. They're not into any of that Tobias, Rachel, bird play.
I don't think they're hiding it either.
Not exactly, because Tobias is there. He's hanging out, and I always dig the other team members' views of him, and especially in his human morph, where they have to comment like, he's forgotten how to use emotions because hawks don't have facial expressions or anything like that. So
basically, Tobias has become a badass. Because he's just like doesn't notice things, doesn't give away his emotions, doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve anymore. And it's interesting because he went to this school. He used to be picked on in the school, and he's just like owning the school dance, being perfectly normal in it. So just took a few years as a hawk to pull it off.
and not only that. He's dancing with Rachel, one of the prettiest girls in school. He's probably wearing that cool leather jacket from the series.
Cover art. From the series or from book number 3. He's got a sweet jacket on in that one that turns into wings in the morphing cover.
But that's not the cool outfit they decked him out in on the show.
No, in the TV series, it looked like he was wearing his dad's old bomber jacket or something. It was totally something a nerd would wear.
It was a gift from Visor 3 in his female morph. And his cousin Linda, or whatever her name was.
Visor's got some weird morphs. Let's just keep it at that. Anyway, let's get back to this disease, Yamfit. Is that how you're pronouncing it?
Yamfoot. It sounds like honestly, it sounds like a Hebrew word.
I like that we're both just assuming the PH is silent.
Yamfoot.
Yamfoot. Well, celebrate your young foot.
Yeah, he doesn't tell him that he has this until a little bit later, because it's actually a big ordeal to get him out of the school. And this is what's really cool, though, is there's a known controller, Chapman. We finally get a little interaction. It's like, remember Chapman? He's also there. And then, somebody else is hanging out with him. You assume it's a controller until it's Mr. Tidwell. He gets Cassie alone, and it reveals that, he's with the Yerk peace movement, and Cassie's just hit with this whole other dilemma all of a sudden.
I love these two scenes back to back, because the Chapman scene is actually really tense, because, Axe is going crazy, and they're trying to make a good excuse for it, and they're trying to lie well.
Yeah, he can't control his morphing in front of them.
Yeah, and they don't know what Tidwell is doing or who he is or whatever. Then once Tidwell reveals himself, then it goes into a comedy scene where Tidwell's trying to talk serious about this Yerk peace movement, and Axe's legs keep shooting out of his chest and breaking the wall and the water fountain. And
yeah, it's very it's all over the place, really, but it's very dramatic and very tense, and it's like a thrill ride. You want to keep reading.
Yeah. But they do get him out of there, and they figure out a plan to basically have Eric help them out, because Eric owes them 17 favors at this point, just from the last 3 books.
That's right.
And so Eric's going to stay in Cassie's barn and project his hologram and help keep Axe in sick form safe from her dad's prying eyes.
Yeah.
She's got a boy in the barn.
You also, we didn't get into this, you forgot to mention that the Yerk peace movement right now is mainly concerned about delivering this message to Cassie that Visser 3 is about to begin his interrogation of Aftran. And, if this happens, the team's pretty well boned, because she knows literally everything. Because if you recall, this is Aftran, the Yerk controller that showed up in the body of Karen, who spent a nice
the young girl
book with Cassie. I actually went back and listened to our review of The Departure. Episode.
How do we do?
It was moderately entertaining, I guess.
That's all I shoot for.
I've heard better episodes.
Well, it's interesting because it says that Karen, since that book, has chosen, even though she's part of the Yerk peace movement, she's chosen to not have a host. So she's kept up her end of the deal with Cassie, which is interesting because she didn't seem super trustful in The Departure. Even after she broke down and got emotional, you'd think when she got back to the Yerks, even if she's helping the peace movement, she'd be able to justify having a host, that she's helping, as much as she loved having a host and not being in her Yerk form. It's interesting that she followed through and hasn't had one since that book. Yeah,
I just think it's interesting that Visser 3 has apparently waited this long to carry out the interrogation of Aftran.
Well, it could have been he could have recently found out, she could have messed up in relaying something for the Yerk peace movement, and now they've got her. Because I don't think necessarily the events of book 19 are what caused her to become suspicious in the Yerk's eyes.
I mean, one thing this book drives home is that Aftran always felt like she, was kind of at the mercy of the Yerk. She always had to go back to the Yerk pool. But they have portable Cantron arrays, or portable Yerk pools.
Yeah, but
those
are probably very high level.
Were at the doctor's office in book 6 or 7.
Those are probably highly maintained and documented, because you could have rogue Yerks all over. That's the biggest thing the Yerks have to keep everyone in line, is that they have to go back to the Yerk pool. So I bet those are highly controlled technologies, the portable Cantron arrays.
Oh, sure. But, on
top of that, you don't know if those need to be charged up or, anything else.
Right. But all it would take is this Yerk peace movement to grow, let's say, 10 to 20 members strong, and just in whatever free spare time they're given, hijack one and stash it somewhere.
I think hijacking one of those is a declaration of war.
Probably.
That
I'm
would
sure
be,
Visser
that would be a
3
much bigger deal.
wouldn't appreciate it.
Well, right now they're just a ragtag team of people who disagree with the main Yeerks, which can be controlled. I don't even think Visitor 3 would necessarily kill them all for just disagreeing with taking hosts and stuff. But once they steal something that important, it would be all out. We have to exterminate all of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where they're at with interrogating Aftran. So
democracy don't fly with the Yeerks.
I was gonna, never mind. I was gonna go get political there for a second, but whatever.
Don't bother.
I was also about to weave in something about Rogue One there too. So I'm all over the place.
Oh yeah, you're just barely hanging on with your tangents tonight.
Pretty much.
I will say though, their team, the plan that they come up with here was something that I just didn't see coming at all, and I was really surprised, and I enjoyed every minute of it when they come up with the idea to do their eel morph, like slip and slide through the water tower system.
Yeah, that seems like impossible to me. Like, even if they're on point with knowing which, even if Axe was there and could tell them left, right, or whatever,
No,
the idea of
that's
them
ridiculous.
the idea of them all being able to do it in sync and to remember everything and get to where they were trying to go, absolutely impossible. So I'm glad this didn't pay off, and it did fail.
The payoff was great, though. I loved where they came out. They ended up shooting out of a fire hose into a burning building, and that was so
awesome.
That was so unexpected. And I actually really appreciate that they didn't get that easy win of we were so lucky as to be able to flush ourselves down through the tubes into the Yeerk pool.
Yeah, and this plan, it's a really bad plan because, like they said, it could have ended up them in just a toilet that needs to be flushed in an abandoned building, where they would just sit and die because they couldn't get past the current.
Or get stuck in a clogged tube and not be able to like move backwards or anything.
Yeah, it's a horrible plan.
Like they say, get stuck in eel morph. Probably one of the worst things.
The biggest takeaway is that Jake gets sick from this, and it starts this cascading flu symptom sickness throughout the entire group where they can't, once they get it, they're out. They're not part of the mission anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the team starts dropping. Axe was just the first.
It's great. Marco, using the nursery rhyme, 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. Perfect.
Right, yeah. He does that. And, this book is also cool because we get this scene like where Cassie is at school and she realizes that, Rachel is also missing, and she calls her house and finds out that she's sick. And we got Mr. Tidwell, or his name's Ilum, which looks really weird on print because it's capital I. It looks just like the 2 small L's. So it just looks like a nonsense word.
Technically, it is a nonsense word, but
I guess so. It's a sci-fi name. It can be anything. Anything could be a sci-fi name.
Yeah, but no, it's a great conversation, and I love. You can't tell if Mr. Tidwell's talking or Ilum. You just kind of have to trust him, which the Animorphs shouldn't have that much trust at this point. But he could have ratted them out or killed them at any moment. So I guess, take it with a grain of salt and just hope it works out.
Well, I really actually really like this character of Mr. Tidwell because this is one of the first characters we see that actually claims to enjoy being like bonded with a Yeerk, who he thinks is good company. And
I think he's better than. I think he's even better. I mean, we've only seen one other Yeerk who's, nice or not part of the Yeerk Empire and wanted to dominate everybody, and that was Karen. And Karen was a great character for that book and made that book great, but a little unrealistic how quickly she turned into a good person or a good guy. With just what happens. With
in that book, you didn't necessarily bond with Karen as a person. She was just a host body to Aftran. What's different here about Mr. Tidwell is that he's got a little bit of a backstory, and this is rad. He mentions it himself, like my wife left me, I got laid off.
No, she died. His wife died.
Whatever his sad backstory was, I ate it up, Coleman. I loved it, and and he's like, having this Yerk kind of like come in and take charge of my life for me has really helped me.
You think somebody depressed who can't handle their situation, is overwhelmed, it must feel nice to have somebody just do it for you.
Oh, exactly. And I started to think like, man, in this like post book future society, that could be a totally viable business venture. It's like, are you like too depressed to go about doing your life? Well, have a Yerk do it for you.
Or just have a Yerk and switch off. Oh, dishes need to be done. I'm zoning out for a while.
Popping in my Yerk. He's like, I'm just happy to experience color. Ooh.
Ooh, these dishes are shiny.
He's playing with the water like a toddler would.
Hey, get back to work.
Oh, this is what I swim through. Oh.
Gets out, swims around the sink for a little bit, gets back in.
That's so weird.
All right. That was a dumb tangent.
That's what we have to offer here at Thoughtspeak. But yeah, you mentioned Marco's analogy of the monkeys jumping on the bed, and no sooner that he says that does he like express symptoms, and then like he's out. So
it's really
this
cool
book is it's a domino effect of everybody's quickly being knocked off the team.
It's a funny written scene too, because he's Cassie's talking about how he looks disgusted at the idea of something he's talking about, and he's making contortions with his face, but it plays it really well until he goes over to the bushes and throws up, and it's like, oh, he was doing that because he was sick.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's one way to interpret it, yeah.
That's how it's written. It's not an interpretation.
Hey, you have your way of reading these things, and I have mine.
The words meaning normal things.
But it's really cool because Cassie just right off the bat is pretty set on having to morph a Yerk here. And I just think that's such a cool concept. I think it's something that we've waited for since the very first book, where you think, oh my God, they can morph anything. What if they morphed a Yerk? Somebody thought about it on that first read through of book one.
And it had to be Cassie, too. That's what works about this, because...
yeah, right. The humanitarian of the group had to be the one to experience it.
Yeah, but I mean, also just the fact that the rest of them might not have thought the idea because it's too crazy. It's too out there, and the Yerk is the enemy. Yerk's bad guy. I'm not going to turn into one. They'd be too afraid to do it, or someone like Axe would just be too disgusted with the idea of being a Yerk.
Rachel would go grizzly and just, like, tear shit up and probably try and rip tumor out of Axe.
But Cassie, because of the information we get from book 19, because she sees Yerks as just another sentient species and not necessarily the enemy, she's the only one that would think perfectly normally the most efficient, the best way to do this, just go Yerk. So I mean, it because it's informed by another book, it actually makes it really really smarter than it needs to be. So I appreciate that.
I think Yerk is a morph that they should take more advantage of in future books. As far as I mean,
if you can morph, I mean, they won't morph people, but you can't really take advantage of that unless you have, for them to morph Yerk, they would have to have a willing host, because they're not going to turn into what they're fighting against.
They could just have Cassie morph Yerk and then literally just like run into in their mission. They could run right in and like shove her in security guy's ear, and then Cassie would be like, I got you covered. Go.
I don't know if that would work as well, but I mean, if they're going to go that far, they might as well just start morphing humans. Which, oh my gosh, would solve 90% of the Animorphs problem.
I know. Well, if they did that, they'd have to change the title of the books to like the
People Morph.
Biomorphs.
Which I'm okay with. No, people are animals. We're all animals. Everything's an animal.
Dude, biomorphs make sense because they morph all life forms, and it would be B. It would start with a B, so it would be right after Animorphs.
I'm going to give that to you. That's actually a really good title for a sequel series.
I like that too.
Let's pitch
it.
We're going to have that pitch. I cannot wait for that episode. That's how we're ending this series.
I can't wait for it either.
I'm going to have like a 70-page outline done by then. So we just keep adding to it.
Yeah, and, you know, this book really starts to fly once this, like, sickness starts spreading through all the team members. And for some reason,
sick as well.
As soon as she gets back after finding out Marco's sick, that's when Tobias is like flying around doing his security rounds, and he falls from the sky. And you know, it's great. We even get moments where she's like, "Everyone's sick now, dang it!" And Tobias, I don't have time for you. I'm going to treat you like a bird. She shoves him in a cage, and it's like,
lets her dad take care of him.
Dad, take care of Tobias.
She's lucky that Tobias didn't try to thought speak her dad.
I know, that's what I was thinking, is like she should have left him some instructions. Don't you dare start talking to my dad.
Well, maybe he did, and Cassie's dad's just like, I'm not going crazy.
If Cassie's dad goes missing for the next couple of books, we'll know why. He's at a therapeutic retreat.
Just spending way too much time with birds, you know? That's a thing. But no. So everybody's sick at this point. She has no help. Just like the back of the book told us, she's on her own for the first time.
First time ever. And I love that there's a scene where she runs into her house and talks to her mom and asks for books on brain surgery, animal brain surgery, for like a report that she's doing. And her mom gives her some stuff, and she's like, okay, see ya. And then she actually thinks like, well, this could be like the last moment I actually talk to my mom, but I can't even do anything about it. I can't make a big deal about it.
Yeah, I mean, they go on a lot of missions, but I think anytime they go back into the Yerk pool, those aren't just close calls. Those are, we got out of here alive by sheer luck. Every single time they go down there. Right.
This is like, we've been kind of breezing through this plot here, but in terms of like scope and scale, this is like a really, really serious plot, because at this point, they're basically terrified that they're all going to die. even though it only seems fatal in Axe's case, because he's actually got the exploding tria gland.
Well, he does, but if Aftran talks, she talks about who the Animorphs are, that they're humans, the Yerk Peace Movement. Everybody loses if she talks.
Sure.
And through that, you lose the Free Hork-Bajir. I don't know, the Elimus might be in trouble. I don't know what's going on.
No, there's definitely bad things involved if Aftran gets interrogated by the Vizier, of course. Just the other teammates being sick is not so much like a life-threatening thing as it is just, it kind of removes them from the plot and the mission. Which is unfortunate for Cassie, because, like you said, trips to the Yerk pool suck major ballage. And to do that on your own, you got to have major ballage. And Cassie does.
So this next scene is actually really great, because she goes to Tidwell's house, and they're initiating the plan. And it's just this great scene of Tidwell. I mean, he's not an Animorph. He's not used to these situations.
No, he's like a regular dude with a regular Yerk dude in his head, so he's not necessarily the authority in this situation. And Cassie even mentions it's like weird for me to be leading him around because he looks like the adult in the situation.
And
it's just awesome.
Ilum's terrified. Mr. Tidwell's terrified. They trust her, but still at the same time, I mean, to have to, as Ilum, has to survive in a bowl of water.
Yeah, no, a little baggie. He puts him in a little plastic baggie.
Yeah, no, in his pocket. Sorry.
And it's so cool as Cassie morphs Yerk for the very first time, and actually just takes over a human body and does the most mundane thing of like getting in a car and driving down to the McDonald's.
And this is what I appreciate too, is the fact that they put him in a baggie and put him in their pocket. This is something I think a lot of writers, especially writers who didn't start this series, like a ghostwriter, could totally miss out on, the fact that it's not good enough for him to go down to the Yerk pool and just drop Cassie into the Yerk pool. His Yerk has to go into the pool too, because they keep these things on a schedule. And so he would starve to death if he didn't get to go on his 3 days. So they had to slip him in as well, so that it would all work.
Sure, yeah. She was basically
really clever.
A stowaway.
Yeah.
I guess, you know what? She could have just morphed Yerk and ridden the baggie I mean, she didn't need to go inside the person, I guess, unless she was going to do something different. Well, I guess that was sort of the whole point, was that they were giving her the host body, so to speak, to do as she pleases with down there.
Yeah, because she probably, part of the deal, you're not going to, as an Animorph, you can be trusting to a point, but you're not going to get into a baggie in a strange morph and be in the hands of Yeerks. I mean, that's...
Exactly.
That's a little too much. But anyway, I like them bringing back the McDonald's and the, Happy Meal with Extra Happy. That's
yeah. It's still not a problem to get into one of these Yeerk pools. And we had a comment from somebody earlier who mentioned we should talk more about the GLEAT biofilters, since they made a big deal about them, especially in the last
Here's
book.
the weird thing. So in the last book, we saw that the GLEAT biofilters can't scan flies in the nose of a cow.
Yeah.
But it can sense a Yeerk in the head of a human.
Right, well, because they're already pre-programmed to sense Yeerk and human biosignatures.
But if it can sense
those are the okay ones for it to allow.
But if it can sense the Yeerk inside of a human skull, surely it can identify a life form in the nose cartilage of a cow. So they're being a little inconsistent with this.
It's flimsy. it's flimsy logic. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna try and defend it. The technology in these series kind of works as the plot requires, and you could blame that on the grade that they're writing for, or...
If you wanted to get fanboy geek about it and explain it, maybe the Slaughterhouse GLEAT biofilters are running on an outdated software versus the ones that protect the Yeerk pool, which are probably much more prominent in security.
Sure, you could always work in excuses.
Yeah, but it works. She gets in, and it talks about the defenses more of the Yeerk pool. It talks about the GLEAT biofilter. It talks about the hunter-killer robots.
Yeah, we get a lot of cool callbacks to
which
just
book
all
was the hunter? I don't remember which book the hunter-killer robots were introduced in.
That was in the Rachel book where they morph bats.
I thought that might have been the case.
The underground.
The first time they go through the McDonald's, right?
It might have been. That was a while.
I just remember...
That was like 2 years ago, I think.
Well, I remember making the cover art for it, and the cover art has a McDonald's on it, so I think that's the right one, the oatmeal one.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, she gets in.
Yeah, no, it's not even a problem. She's in there, and we get the same old callbacks to things we've seen before. There's of course construction equipment, because they're always expanding the Yeerk pool area. Terrifying to think about.
And the screams from the people in Hork-Bajir cages.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the cool chill area where the voluntary hosts are hanging out, and it really paints all of them as kind of bad people. But I am constantly reminded of people like Mr. Tidwell, who maybe they're not necessarily bad people. They're just in a bad place in their life, and accepting the Yeerk is just their way of getting through this. And they're not necessarily stupid people.
Well,
they should just accept it and watch reruns of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Well, some people could even be part of the Yeerk peace movement, like Mr. Tidwell. Mr. Tidwell is probably considered a voluntary host because it's easier that way. Why would he not be? Even though he's part of the movement to fight the Yeerks, why would you not be a voluntary host to all of them in appearances?
Sure, yeah. I don't quite know how it works out.
I'm saying Mr. Tidwell is joining them on the couch, and we've always seen those people as dirt bags.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what the book portrays them as. They're over there laughing, having a good time while everybody else is suffering. And
although I'd say
I think there would be people like Mr. Tidwell who would be sitting more somberly, more roastly in the corner, not necessarily enjoying their lot.
But I think they're still right. If you're not like Mr. Tidwell and part of the Yeerk peace movement, if you're just a guy who is depressed and gave up his life to Yeerks and it's working out for you, the fact that you're sitting there watching a TV show while people are screaming and being hurt and enslaved, yeah, you're still a dirtbag. I do agree with them still on that. But someone like Mr. Tidwell,
but at the same time, there's nothing you could necessarily do at that point.
That's the line of thinking that's let's authoritarian governments take over. There's always something you could do, even if it's fruitless.
You're totally right. He could get himself killed.
Yeah, even if it's fruitless, there's still it's still worth trying.
He wants to try and make a break for it. Let him.
It's more important to get that message across now than ever.
Totally. Totes.
Totes.
I thought a trip to the Yerk pool would be more terrifying of a situation, but as soon as they get down there, things go pretty well, and Cassie makes her way out of Mr. Tidwell's body and into the Yerk pool, and she's even pretty quickly able to locate, where the little cage that Afshin's holding her.
We learn about the Yerk's. We learn about the Yerk's sonar.
Yeah, how they move around inside their pool, and
although I think there's still some confusion over how they find the right host when they're at the pier, when they're going back in, and how much they can actually see.
I'm sure they have a way of transponding some kind of message on a schedule, like this is Yerk number so and so's.
Just technology wise, yeah, they probably have something worked out.
They might vibrate the water a certain amount of times, and then whoever's Yerk is up just knows or whatever. Who knows? Yeah. We didn't get that specific detail out of this
I want to know it all.
Yeah. Please give us the Yerk feeding schedule handbook I want to know hand out to all the hosts.
I want to know the bureaucratic aspects of the Yerk Empire. That's what I'm most interested in.
Yeah, like a training manual. They should make a training manual for cadet Yerks.
I got the name for it. It's like the book from Beetlejuice that they get when they're dead. It's called "So You've Been Enslaved." A handbook for the Yerk Empire.
It'd be more like "So You've Been Given a Body." Yeah. And it's written really now try not to get your body killed or maimed.
Those things don't grow back.
It's like a Portal humor, You got
to think about that. This is a tangent, but you got to think about that. How much Yerks have to learn about humans? Just think of, we were born as humans. We've grown up as humans. We've gone to school. We've taken health class. Think of a Yerk, shooting across the stars, being thrown into the Yerk pool, gets his first human host, and it's like, okay, this works like this. Your fingers do this. This is for that.
And now kill everything.
Oh, well, never mind. That's not true because they have the memories of the host body, so they know all that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But still, they only get access to these great human bodies, and they only get, they only get to experience any kind of joy, with the stipulation that they fight for the Yerk Empire and try to take everything over. And then they ruin what makes their, host bodies, natural habitats, so desirable in the first place.
It is interesting that basically their citizenship is their soldiers, because to get a host body, you have to have a role. You have to do all of this, and it's all military. The whole civilization is military based. So, to gain citizenship, to be a host, you have to join the war, which is obviously why some Yerks have a problem with it.
Right. Yeah. So there's, I'm sure there's so much politics we could talk about inside the Yerk pool going on, but before Cassie's able to do anything of value, Aftrin is scooped out with a ladle and taken to the Visor for interrogation. and Cassie somehow manages to find her way into another host body, which was pretty cool, I guess.
So this is my cop out.
Try out multiple bodies.
This is my cop out I was talking about. This, I think, is the most unrealistic part of the scene of the book, and I think it actually hurts the ending a little bit, this whole part right here. This whole thing with Aftrin is wrapped up a little too neatly with her rescuing her and her getting out of the Yerk pool. She basically stands toe-to-toe as a human with Visor 3, and he's, bamboozled by her. I mean, she's fighting him and then gets away. When we're told these Andalites can, within a half a millisecond, their tail can, kill someone instantly. I don't care how surprised he is. I don't care how the book describes how unruly this was. Visitor 3 does not mess around, and he's not easily
yeah, dude,
distracted.
He was taken by surprise here, and I think it makes total sense because
even if he's surprised, he's actually he's actually physically attacked by her.
No. She just kind of shoves him out of the way and totally surprises him. And gets the upper hand there.
Visitor 3 is
and it makes total sense because no, you listen to me because you've been talking. So it makes total sense because he's at home. Okay, he doesn't think that he's in his element, that anything can surprise him. And he mostly expects the Andalite bandits to be in these wild earth animal battle morphs. Okay, he's not expecting a lowly little human, least of all one that clearly is one of their documented, cataloged host bodies to be the ones to attack him. And he certainly wouldn't expect the Andalites to use a human morph to attack him when he's in his Visitor 3 Andalite body. So it makes sense. It makes sense that he'd be taken off guard there.
I disagree with you on 2 points of that. A, I think the Visitor does not feel safe anywhere. I think at this point in the series, he is, and we've seen this in this very book, he is paranoid at every moment that the Andalite bandits are going to pop out of nowhere.
He's paranoid of animals. He has not at this point showed any paranoia around humans.
No. He's paranoid in general. And secondly, I think someone with the demeanor and the reactions we've seen from Visitor 3, if he got bumped in the hallway, they might lose a head. So someone actively using force against him, they're dead in seconds. And all the Hork-Bajir standing around with Dracon beams, all the humans standing around. Come on.
See, the way I imagined it is like she bumped him so hard that he took like a compulsory step back and like one of his hind legs went in the Yerk pool and he was like struggling to pull himself back up. Like
basically Chevy Chase.
It made sense. It made total sense in my imagination.
Chevy Chase in the vacation movies is what
you got to imagine, or you got to remember though that Visor, while being able to pull off some pretty badass morphs, that's really all he's got going for him because he's demonstrated time and time again he's kind of an idiot. His affinity for cats has defeated him on numerous occasions. He wasn't able to adequately master containment box technology. Foiled again there because of that.
I mean, this whole thing, I like her leaping into the Yerk pool, going Osprey and trying to get out of there. But I think this whole part wraps up this mission a little too quickly.
You know what? Normally I'd agree with you, but I really dug this particular scene because by all means, by all accounts, she should not be able to get out of the Yerk pool here. I mean, she's surrounded by, like you said, the hunter robots, fucking Visors there. He's about to go into... Well, he does go into his badass morph. It's a really tense scene where you expect that she should not make it out, and she's not going to make it out. Visor's in this, like, stinging, tentacly kind of morph, and he's, like, repeatedly stinging her over and over again, and she's got controllers, like, shooting at her and stuff. And then the hunter robots come, and, the way that she dispatches those is kind of ridiculous in that she just covers them in poop, and that their one weakness is their sensor. They're like little
But that's what I'm
video camera.
Once
sensor.
she goes, I could almost buy everything up till her going to Osprey Morph and getting out of there, because once she's out and just flying, the hunter-killer robots, which are made basically to take out birds flying around in there and things, getting out that way. All of the thousands of Yerks in there, probably tons of them with Dracon beams, Visors morph, all this stuff. Like, I needed one more gimmick. I needed one more clever idea.
And then Krayak showed up.
No, but I needed something, like something going wrong on the Yerk side, some piece of construction equipment falling over, or her figuring something out. I just thought it was literally her flying from point A to B.
Oh, dude, it would have been sick as shit if, like, you know, it seemed like she's about to die there, and then one of the construction cranes swung over and like smacked the visor and the robots and everything. And Cassie looked back, and Tidwell's up in the crane, like giving a thumbs up.
That would have been great. And then he like shoots himself in the head so that he can't be taken.
No, we love Tidwell.
I love Tidwell too, but
we love Tidwell.
But the whole point of getting Aftran out of there is so they don't know someone with the Yerk peace movement can be captured and interrogated. If you get Tidwell, you lose that again.
He escapes, damn it.
And then leaves.
He's going to be a recurring character. I hope he shows up in the next book to give them their next mission instead of Eric.
I hope he becomes an Animorph. 50-year-old man.
Tidwell for Animorphs.
Gets a leotard.
With a Yerk in his head. Hey, I kind of like the idea of one of the team members having a Yerk in his head.
So do I. We should incorporate that into our sequel series. Oh, wait, we already have. Boom.
Just shush.
No, never. Every episode.
Moving on. They're, like we said, you know, this thing wraps up pretty quick because, you know, we've only got like 2 more scenes really to get through. She makes it against all odds out of the Yerk pool. Very tense, very dramatic. By all accounts, impossible, but by gummit, Cassie's done it.
I do love that this really messes with the normal Animorphs format, in that after the big mission, it's not over. We've got something even more desperate to get to. And it's the best scene in the book. Easily.
The climaxiest of climaxes. Yeah. And here is where I thought the book could have done some kind of cop-out. I don't know what, like maybe he was able to like poop out the virus or something, but they actually go through with an alien brain surgery from this 14-year-old girl, and she does it flawlessly.
Yeah, it's written incredibly scary. I mean, at one point she just wants to run away just so she doesn't have to deal with it. I think that's pretty realistic teenager writing, and describing every step of it, the whole having to use Aftran in Axe's head to help her out. This is a great scene. This is a really great scene. Eric just kind of like giving her the thumbs up from the corner and helping whenever he can. And
he's not doing a whole lot other than like lifting Axe up for her.
Oh, sorry. Am I just keeping my futuristic hologram running 24/7? That's not good enough.
Well, you know, Eric's hologram service is available 24 hours a day.
But no, it's a really great scene. Needs to be read. It's not even worth us describing, because it's her terror and Axe's life genuinely feeling like it's on the line, even though he's a main character. I just thought it was great scene, and pushed this book to
it was so awesome.
Levels.
And like I said, when I read the back of the book and I hear about this, somebody's got something wrong with their head. You know, I immediately think that the series is going to find a way to not make that happen. But so surprised that they went through and portrayed a surgery in what should be a grade school level book here.
I mean, if you wanted to nitpick, I would say it's a little bit of a cop-out, or not cop-out, but it's coincidence that the one Animorph that doesn't get sick is the one that has any kind of medical experience.
Oh, absolutely, because, if it had been any other Animorph doing it, it would have failed 100%.
Yeah, like most of them wouldn't even gone through with it or even tried. She's the only one who could have even stepped up. So, again, tiny little nitpick.
Elemis did it. Krayak, that was a wager between the two of them. Krayak was like, okay, I'm going to make your team sick. And then Elemis was like, okay, everyone except for one. Okay.
So this scene does wrap up, though, with... it's successful. Axe wakes up, and freaks the F out because he has a yerk in his head.
Awesome. I know. And this is probably the best part of the book, is the way that this now changes the dynamic and the friendship between Cassie and Axe. Because you got to imagine he's not going to be able to forgive her so easily for allowing a yerk to be inside his head.
Think about this war between the Yeerks and the Andalites, and how in that entire span of time, which is decades now, they've been fighting. In that whole time, with all the battles and hand-to-hand combat or ships exploding or being captured, only one Andalite has ever been taken by a Yeerk. That shows the level of commitment they have to making sure that they never become hosts. So the fact that Axe is now the first to become the second Andalite to take a yerk in his head, that's got to be dishonor among dishonor and terror and disgust. And
and you also got to...
He says he'd rather be dead. She'd have killed him.
Exactly. Yeah. So, he's got these deep racist tendencies that he can't see the obvious good to come of it, as that, because of this he was able to live. And I really hope they explore this dynamic more. And I love that, they were all still processing the fact that Cassie is talking about this Yeerk peace movement like it's a thing that they can just trust. There's even a great line where they hint at even Rachel being upset with her about this. Oh man, I want to find this quote too. You should talk while I look for this.
I can talk about the Aftran thing. So Aftran, this is great because it's a callback to the book 19 where we meet Aftran. Once she gets out, she realizes she can't go back to the Yeerk pool, and she asks Cassie to kill her. This is not the first time this has happened, so it's a great homage to that first book where they meet and everything. And with this, Cassie has to make a decision. What are we going to do? And I actually thought for a second, are we going to have a David sequel here? Are they going to make a Yeerk into an Animorph? But luckily, they come to even though she's peaceful and she's changed and they totally believe her, they do come to a good agreement, which has echoes of how the series ends. If you've read the series, I hope that you've read all the way through. But it's a great start to the idea that, hey, these Yeerks can't see. They have no senses that they think is wonderful. That's why they take those in the first place. And we can give them morphing ability and make sure they stick in their morphs, and kind of solves everything. So that's what they do with Aftran.
Okay, here we go. So this totally calls back to the events that happened in the departure with Cassie, making the brash decision to pop one of these Yeerks into her head, basically, and give a Yeerk, one of their enemies, all of their information. She did that without any of the team's input on it. And I love the fact that some of them are hiding resentments about that. And in this passage here, I believe it shows, even from Rachel, her supposed best friend. So this is Rachel's bit of dialogue. Probably it is a trap, but we still have to go, Rachel said. Because if Tidwell or Ilum or whoever is telling the truth, we're dead meat. Aftran will crack when the visitor interrogates her, and she knows everything about us. Everything. Right, Cassie? She said acidly, looking angrily at me. Okay, motherfucker, she looked acidly and angrily in that statement.
That's her best friend, and that's how she acts and looks at her.
Exactly.
That means something.
And to Cassie's credit, she says, I met her gaze without blinking. My voice was steady. That's right, I answered. So she clearly understands that she did the right thing, even if her friends don't quite understand what happened.
So it's crazy that this was ghostwritten. I'm sure there's an outline by Kay Applegate and Michael Grant, but it's crazy how many echoes of the end of the series are in these books, because I don't know if you've read the ghostwritten books leading up to the final books, but Cassie does something that loses all the trust of the entire team.
The last 10 or so. We don't need to talk about it here, but Cassie is by far one of the characters that could have been one of the least interesting, but they decided to go and make her one of the most interesting.
And that's coming from us, who from book 1 through 17, we hated Cassie. So
we poo-poo on Cassie a lot, but don't misunderstand. We understand her purpose in the story, her character. We know her character better than most of the casuals. The Cashies.
She is easily one of the most important and, like you said, interesting Animorphs. So,
and this book perfectly, in my opinion, cements that. If you were ever going to read a Cassie book, I think this is the best example of Cassie by far to date.
Oh, but I think you'd have to read it as a double feature with book 19. That's what makes it even better.
True. Although after listening to our review of The Departure, do you remember what we gave that?
No. What did we give it?
You don't remember what you gave The Departure?
Probably either 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5.
Yeah, you were a 5.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, I think had the more unpopular opinion of a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, no, I think The Departure is incredibly important, and I mean, I think the only thing you can really ding The Departure for is the freaking Jaguar subplot. But
it just kept appearing.
But
anytime the plot needed it.
But I loved that, and it has so many shades of so many TV shows and movies throughout the years. I mean, do you remember the Rugrats movie had that same subplot?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You want to put kids in danger? Throw a Jaguar into a temperate climate.
It was very cool, and we even got to see Marco play a little bit of an antagonist at one point in that book. So
yeah, it was great.
So go listen to our review of The Departure, kids.
Yeah, exactly. But no. So they wrap up the whole Afghan thing with letting her. You got in your notes that they let her take a dolphin morph. It's a humpback whale, sir. So you need to get your facts straight.
No, I thought they gave her a dolphin.
Nope, they give her a humpback whale.
Whoa. That blows my mind because...
Are you checking now?
Pretty sure. You best believe I've got my book open in front of me. Wait a minute. Is this... oh, no, that's the preview of the next book.
We turned. I scanned the ocean and spotted a foamy spot. The water broke over a massive fin.
Then a humpback whale leaped. Okay, yeah, whatever.
Nice.
Why wouldn't they give her a dolphin? That's
humpback whale. Well, I mean, humpback whale. She can. There's a community there, and there's intelligence there. I think that's the more important part.
Sure.
Dolphins are super intelligent too, but humpback whales can sing to each other. You know.
If you were going to have a life at sea, though, I think the fun dolphin life might be the better option.
Yeah, but humpback whales probably live longer. They don't have any natural predators, really. I mean, it's not too bad.
That's really the ultimate solution there is to give all Yeerks humpback morphs to stay in.
Basically what they do at the end of the series, just not humpback specifically.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the
cool fact. So humpback whales are awesome, and I've always loved them, mostly because of Star Trek 4, the Voyage Home. Did you ever see that one with the whales?
Oh,
where they have to go back 1980 San Francisco and save the whales. So exciting stuff. In 2 weeks' time, we're going on our honeymoon to Hawaii. And one of the reasons we're going in December or January is so that we can see humpback whales. They're everywhere there. You can go out in a canoe and they'll swim up to you and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't wait to go with you. It's going to be great. What? You said we.
My wife and I.
Well, that's news awesome to me.
Jared, pack.
I don't need to pack. I live in Minnesota right now. Nothing I own can help me prepare me for what is in Hawaii. You understand that my car just died 3 days in a row because of cold weather.
Wow.
And I had to replace all of my tires recently because they were balding and double over the mileage that I was supposed to have driven them.
That's crazy. Anyway, let's get back to this book. Let's go.
No, we have to talk about my winter travel problems.
I'm having the same thing. I had to basically buy a whole new set of outfits just for Hawaii. So,
right, yeah.
You'd think living in Texas, I'd have things that would be applicable, but it doesn't translate.
I also I dug the fact that this book, it started out really lighthearted with the kids at a dance, and then it got really, really heavy and depressing, and it seemed like all hope was lost.
Bless you.
And then I sneeze.
Well, go right into your review. Let's hear it.
And then no, I just want to say that it ends with them, and this is kind of cool because it almost seems like it's going to be a depressing little happy ending here, but they reveal that Aftrin's not dead; she's just in morph, and everything's cool. And the idea that they would use the morph box that allow this technology to be used in this way is something that we haven't seen.
Yeah, that's a big step for them because David taught them a lot about letting someone else use the blue box. And, I think we're going to see more of that from what I know very slightly about the ghostwritten books. They definitely start using it more and more, and it becomes a huge plot MacGuffin later on.
Oh, it's going to be so sweet. And then, the series may have benefited from maybe taking advantage of this a little bit more, but I haven't read a lot of these ghost
from the
books
sound of things. From the sound of things, they use it often towards the end of the series, so we'll see. But let's jump into our reviews. Do you want to go first? Mine's gonna be pretty brief.
Is it now? I don't know. Mine might be brief too. Maybe you could tell, maybe you haven't, but I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Like I said, I didn't know how they would manage to top the experiment, and I even gave that one a 4, as you gave it a 5. But I really, really enjoyed that one. Axe's perspective is really unique, and it's always fun. But in the end, I think that one it was a fun book, and that's it. This one is fun in a completely different way in that it gives us something kind of uniquely different. We get so much what I would call good character development from Cassie, just in the different kinds of dilemmas that she faces, besides that the other team members don't really go through. She's the one that's connected to this Yeerk peace movement, and the others are kind of resentful of that, maybe not trusting in that quite yet. And it's really cool that we get this angle on that from Cassie. So it's really cool that they're advancing that plot line still. Just the Yeerk peace movement in general is like something that, again, they could devote an entire book to, like the Controller Chronicles or something. That'd be freaking sweet. I want that book. The eel morph water slide joyride subplot, as dumb as it was, I think it's cool. I think it's still essential that they show these kids can have dumb ideas that just go nowhere, because they tend to get really lucky on a lot of things, and we call them out as coincidences when things work out when they shouldn't. And this book says no more of that. This is a dumb thing, and the kids are just not going to have any luck with it. They're going to almost die. So it was a fun scene, despite not going anywhere. It still contributed to making everything feel very tense. I loved the new character introductions for Ilum and Mr. Tidwell. I'd love to see them return, working more with the Yeerk peace movement. Hey, they could be the stars of that the Controller Chronicles book. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I would take that. I would read that book. I'd sleep with it in my bed. We get some information on Andalite diseases like Yamfoot, the Yamfoot disease, and Andalite biology, physiology, tria glands, and exploding bacterials, and I really dug the whole alien brain surgery subplot. I think that was a really good idea. Whoever, whether it was one of the Applegates or someone in one of their little Scholastic meetings that pitched like alien brain surgery as a topic, but I'm glad they did it. Glad they ran with it. So cool to see Yeerk morph happen. I don't know. There's not much else to say about that. It was just super interesting all around. So basically, I enjoyed this book a hell of a lot more, certainly more than I ever thought I would. This is a book that I'm going to probably remember for quite a while, and honestly, I would say you should read it. If you're looking for just a good standalone Animorphs adventure, this one is totally worth your while. It's fun. It's very tense. It's an excellent example of how even one of the lamer characters can be really cool and interesting and fun, and it makes me super excited to see more of what can become of Cassie and the rest of her subplots with the team, kind of harboring these feelings of resentment towards her and some of her actions. Seeing what happens and develops with the Yeerk Peace movement. I just wanted to point out real quick that in the review of The Departure, you were super confident that Aftrin came back like 5 more times in the series and was a really important character. But what seems to happen here at the end would imply that you were in fact wrong, and I think we've seen the last of Aftrin.
You don't know that. She could be really important in Humpback Whale Morph. They go in the ocean all the time.
Okay, maybe, sure. I guess they could go talk to a whale.
She's going to show up in that
nothing that they haven't already done.
She's going to show up in that dumb Atlantis book, and you're going to eat your words. Also, here's a crazy plot for you. Time travel is a big part of the series. So, boom. The whale they talk to in book number 3, Aftran.
Oh,
not book number 3, 4. Book number 4.
Whatever book it was. And they didn't really talk to it, per se. It just kind of like gave them psychic fish feelings.
Yeah, because it would break the space-time continuum if she revealed herself at that early stage.
Yeah, okay. The point that I'm getting here...
She went back in time as a humpback whale in a Klingon bird of prey.
My review for the book is as follows. Sir, I give this, hear ye, book number 29, The Sickness, gets 5 out of 5 exploding tria glands.
What? You don't give out 5s too often, and I don't believe I do either. But it's always nice to hear you go crazy for a book.
It was a fun one.
So
yeah, I enjoyed reading it.
It's good. I mean, I have to agree with you. This is a great book. I enjoyed every part of it. I love every scene of it.
Tear it apart, my friend.
No, I think the writing is on par with the last book, which I really thought. I mean, the last book was a little more clever in like its puns at the end of chapters and stuff, but this is a well-written book. I'm thoroughly invested in the plot. Makes Cassie a better character all around. Great book. I do have to ding it though, even though it's crazy important to the series, and I would definitely put it up there with some of the better ones. I don't like how the Aftran rescue's wrapped up. I don't, and that's a big enough deal. Going into the Yeerk pool should be a big deal. It should be something that is difficult. It should be something going toe-to-toe with Visitor 3 should be scary, not, crazy, like you said, Chevy Chase antics of buffoonery. And sometimes he is that way, but I thought so much of this Yeerk pool escape didn't work for me, or I just thought it needed a little more meat on them bones, and I would have bought it hook, line, and sinker. And the scene right after that is amazing. One of the best scenes in the whole series. But because of the main mission of the book not, wrapping up in a successful or relieving way, I have to say I give this 4 out of 5 version 2.0 Gleep biofilters. Still love the book. This is necessary reading, but I think it could have wrapped up a little better.
Certainly. I mean, yeah, these things are always going to tend to wrap up a little quickly, just because of the pacing and the nature of these things.
It might have been because of how good the rest of the book is that I was more so disappointed with that scene.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why I liked it, and when I was reading it, I wasn't questioning it and going, this is BS. Because it really made me like Cassie more, honestly. Seeing her endure all this pain, Vizor's stinging her in his morph, and, she's desperately dodging Draken beams and stuff flying at her, and the hunter drones are a huge threat zooming around, and when you see a character like persevering through what seems like impossible odds, those are cool moments. And I saw it as a very cinematic, very dramatic moment, and probably the kind of thing that if it were on TV, maybe have a lot of slow-mo in it, just kind of show the gravity of the situation a little bit,
While I agree with you on that,
Zack Snyder it.
While I agree with you on that, they ended it with a poop joke. So that kind of took away from the scene a little bit.
Well, I will say that as stupid as that was, it was a little foreshadowed, because in the very beginning of the book, when Cassie was talking about what they do and morphing, and she's talking about the birds in her place, she mentioned birds pooping. So totally foreshadowed.
That's true. I'll give you that. But my review still stands 4 out of 5, which is great for a great book. I mean, that's not bad. But yeah, I mean, everyone needs to read this one, and I would definitely say they need to read the book coming up next, because I am thoroughly excited for it.
The next one that we're going to review, which is not to say it's not the next book that's canonically in the series.
No, they are canonically in the series, because they're all the Megamorphs books, besides I think the last one, are mentioned in other books. So they are chronologically in the series.
Sure, but I'm saying we're not reading book number 30.
Yes, we are reading Megamorphs.
We are putting the reunion on hold because we need to take a little break from Megamorphs 3, Elfangor's Secret.
Mm-hmm. A great book. And
just tell them what we feel about it. Just tell them.
No, you can't hide it. It's time travel. It's horrifying deaths. It's everything we love about it.
History. It's very. I love it. It's a very Doctor Who-y kind of book.
In the proud tradition of Thoughtspeak, we're gonna have a guest join us, which we've already picked out. He's someone who I actually host another podcast with. And he's a longtime Animorphs fan, at least since college. So
as far as we know,
he's probably read some of the books. No, he's definitely read a bunch of the books. So that's actually new for our guests on the Megamorphs episodes, because my wife was the guest on the last one, and Nate was
had
the guest
never
on the first
read any
one.
of the books until we dragged him into this.
Yeah, my wife definitely hadn't either. So, it's exciting. It's gonna be good stuff. We're gonna have a guest, and we'll see how it goes, but definitely excited to read the book and jump into it again.
Oh, hell yeah. I've actually only read this one, I think, once, and now that I know exactly what it's about and where it goes and what it does, I'm going to be really interested in getting back into it again and going through it one more time.
I read all of the Megamorphs books quite a few times. I think the one I read the least was probably the first one. 2 is great, just, dinosaurs. But 3 and 4, I mean, those are some.
They got a special place in your heart, don't they?
They absolutely do. So we'll do the battle. Maybe we'll do in the last episode just a battle royale of which is the best Megamorphs book or something. But in the meantime, excited for the next episode and excited for the next book. So. You've enjoyed us here, and I hope that you've enjoyed us enough that you could take just 5 minutes to jump on iTunes and leave us a review. We desperately need those. We're getting back in the game. We're trying to put out episodes a lot quicker, and it really helps motivate us. It really makes us want to come back in just a week or two and record a new episode for you when we see those, reviews jump up on our iTunes. We don't have a Patreon. We're not asking for your money, but those reviews help us get out to more people. It helps us, just gives us energy to want to continue doing the series in a quicker manner than we have in sometimes in the past. So we appreciate anything you do on there. Also, we're on Stitcher, pretty much where you can find a podcast. We're on there. Jump on our Facebook or our Twitter, which I'm pretty active on, and you're pretty active with our Facebook, pretty much, right, Mitch?
Yeah, I tend to get bored and browse the internet a lot, and I post through the Facebook whenever I see anything kind of animal related. And I don't really know what people want to see. I just kind of feel like being an Animorphs podcast, posting animal related things, it seems to be the most enjoyable, at least for me. I guess I could post more sci-fi kind of news and stuff, but I figure people get those from other sources. I like being kind of more random with my posts. I
enjoy your Facebook posts on there. I like them. But I would also challenge people to jump on the Animorphs subreddit on Reddit, r/Animorphs. If you've never been to Reddit before, it's reddit.com/r/Animorphs. I'd love to see more conversation on there, talking about the book series and different elements of the universe and stuff. I think things like that, like the subreddit becoming more popular and more posts happening, is the kind of thing that's really gonna help the series in the long run and help this series maybe make a comeback. A lot of discussion on there is like, hey, I found this beanie with this thing on it that I had when the Animorphs were first running, or just talking about very random topics.
Sure. I do see some really good threads on there, though. One of my favorites that's been posted over the past couple of weeks was somebody wondering if perhaps maybe Donald Trump was a controller based on his insistence to stay within the Trump Tower confines.
Yeah. Well, there's Ken Journo right at the top of it, so that's how you go.
Could be.
But the point is, we need to become a more active community, and we're on there. We're trying to do our part. We're wanting to bring this podcast back into its former and previous and current glory.
Oh my God. Okay. Make Thoughtspeak great again. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly. Anyway, great episode. I've really enjoyed talking about the sickness. Can't wait for the next one.
I've been down with the sickness.
Oh, I know you have been. Ooh, wah!
Nice try.
Anyway, I've been Coleman.
And I have been and still am Mitchell.
Have a good one, everybody.